In this lesson, we're going to learn the long stick. So this is just an introduction at first. There's going to be a series of lessons on the long stick, sometimes called a bow staff or just bow or staff. The long stick varies in length, typically depending upon your height. So the taller you are, the longer the long stick that you're going to be using, certainly the longer that you're going to be able to use. If you have a long stick that is too long, then what's going to happen when you're manipulating the weapon is it's going to hit the floor. And you don't want that to happen. You don't want the weapon touching the floor while you're using it. So as a guideline, this one is a little bit short for me, but I use this one frequently because I'm indoors and I don't want to hit the light or hit the window or hit something else when I'm inside the house. So I've got a slightly shorter long stick, specifically for indoor practice. And then when I'm outside and space permits, then I will use the full length long stick that I have. And you can see the difference in length right there is pretty obvious. This right here is the right length for me. So you notice that when the weapon is on the ground, it should come up to about forehead level, let's say. This is ideal for someone of my height to use something like this. Some people will say that it should come up to nose level or it should come up to eye level, but this is ideal for me, this one right here. But I can't use this one indoors. I'm not going to be using this one in the lessons. I'm going to be using this one. So, and this is just an introduction to the long stick. Just as with any of the weapons that we learn, we're going to come back and revisit them again at black belt. But for now, you're getting a comprehensive introduction to the weapon. And that's the most important thing right now, is to get yourself familiar with the weapon and comfortable with the weapon. So the long stick comes in all kinds of shapes and sizes. This is probably the most common. It's basically just a wooden dowel. So if you want to go down to the hardware store, you don't have to spend a lot of money when it comes to getting a long stick, which is one of the best things about this for martial arts practice. You can go to your local hardware store, go into the section where they have dowels, look for a dowel that is 6 feet long. This is 1 inch, I think 1.25 inches diameter. So you don't want to get anything smaller than 1 inch diameter because it'll be more prone to breaking. This is 1.25 inches. So this is ideal. So right here, this is ideal. You can get a hardwood for the bow staff if you like, but you don't have to spend a lot of money to get something like this. There are fancier dowels or fancier long sticks out there that are not dowels. They have tapered ends, so they're thickest in the middle and then they get thin to the ends. And those ones are great for when you're manipulating the weapon. You can turn it very quickly and you can get more force on the strikes because you've got a smaller point of contact. But most students just prefer the basic long stick like this. This is what we always used at the club. This is what we practiced with. It's one of the easiest weapons to find if you are out in the wilderness, let's say. Anything can approximate a long stick. So if you have a broom handle, a broom handle is a long stick. If you have, let's say, a branch or something off of a tree, you could very quickly turn that into a long stick. So it's a very easy weapon to find, if you will, to find it if you need it. its purposes go far beyond that of a weapon. So they're often used to carry supplies. So if you had bags of food or clothing or other goods, you could carry it like this and put a load over top of your shoulder and walk with it. They're often used as hiking sticks or canes. So if you were walking through the wilderness, this was your walking stick. They had many, many purposes. And some of the militarized versions of the long stick even had edges. So they might make them octagonal just so that you had a pointy edge when you struck and did more damage with the weapon. So that's another thing as well. But this series of lessons we're going to be going through, we're going to be learning the long stick. There's a couple patterns to learn. The grips that we're going to be using, a single hand grip where you grab with one hand and you're grabbing the weapon in the center. And what they call over-under grip. There's a number of different grips that we're not going to be using in this series. We're not going to be using this grip. We're not going to be using this grip here, the double palm grip. You can get by and do all of the core strikes and blocks with the long stick using the over-under grip. So that means palm facing down on one side, palm facing up on the other side. And then when you hold the weapon, you don't want your hands too close together like this, or you're not going to have any control over the weapon. You also don't want them too far apart, or you have no ability to strike or block with the weapon any longer. So about shoulder width apart is typical. I always think of dividing the stick almost like I'm dividing it into thirds. So this is sufficient for the over-under grip. I'm just going to refer to it as our two-handed grip. What's important though is when you're grabbing the weapon, most of the grabbing force is with the first two fingers and the thumb. The last two fingers are largely just along for the ride. So you're holding it mainly with the first two fingers and thumb in your hand, and not so much the smallest two fingers. You don't want to keep them sticking out, of course, because you don't want them to get hit. But most of your grip is at the top of your fist. So coming up, we're going to be talking about the attacks that you can do with the long stick. I'm going to show you some of the transitions between different grips, how to turn, rotate the weapon. We have single and two-hand turning, and they're often used to transition between different grips and move into different attacks. So we're going to be going over that. We're going to be going through the patterns that we have as well, and we're going to be going through the blocks. So long stick, you're going to find is a fantastic weapon. It gives you terrific range to keep opponents away from you. There's no weapon that we're going to be using that has longer reach, longer range than a long stick. So if you have the space to fight with this weapon, and you can't use it in close quarters or tight confines, of course, but if you have the space to move and manipulate a weapon like this, the attacks that you can do with this and the reach that you have with this weapon is phenomenal. So stay tuned for more lessons with the long stick.